up. So this is my quote-unquote guide to the Engineer in Risk of Rain 2, my personal favorite survivor. I was a huge fan of Risk of Rain 1 and have been playing Risk of Rain 2 since the very first week that it launched in early access. I mostly just play Engineer. I mostly just played Accurate in the first game, but I mostly just play Engineer in this game. I don't know how to play Risk of Rain 2, I know how to play Engineer. I just love having minions and blowing shit up. This guide is a bit of a mess. The whole time I'm talking from a standpoint as if you were on at least Eclipse 3 and up, but I tend to cover a lot of fundamental basic things. It's not really an advanced guide, but it's not really a beginner's guide. I'll be going over some general strategy as the Engineer with his different abilities, why I think you should take certain skills over the other, and I'll be discussing my opinions on items, and I'll be going over some item interactions. The gameplay you're currently seeing is taken from a full run that I've posted. I'll link it in the description. First things first, I'll get the biggest question out of the way. Which two types of the turrets should you use? Whichever one you want. I mean, it truly is up to personal preference. The mobile turrets are much better for beginner players, but I personally use the stationary turrets more, as they are the ones I prefer, and with proper usage they can still be very effective even with your turrets having half HP when they spawn, having reduced healing, and enemies moving and attacking much faster than usual. Making use of a map's verticality, you can place stationary turrets out of a melee range's reach, like on rocks, ledges, and certain walls. You can then focus your efforts on taking out the enemies that can reach said turrets like wisps and brass contraptions. Getting a little creative with your turret placement can get you a lot of traction off of a single turret. Just be sure to scan the environment that's surrounding the teleporter, try and find areas where you can place the turret out of reach, and try and make your turret setup look as much like a Venn diagram as possible, with the boss in the center. The mobile turrets can be plopped down pretty much whenever you want. If you need to clear up the area around you, or you need something to draw aggro away from you, there isn't anywhere near as much strategy that goes into using the mobile turrets when compared to the stationary turrets. You can kind of just set it and forget it. Just know that if you have a wax quail and are making good use of it, the mobile turrets likely won't be near you for more than like 1 or 2 waves of enemies, and you will often need to place a new one just to move it closer to you. And this turret will spawn with half HP no matter what level of Eclipse you are playing, so try to wait out bigger attacks that are directed towards you before placing a walking turret. Always take the harpoon launcher over the bubble while playing Eclipse. Okay, this might not make the most sense, but hear me out. The bubble usually is not worth taking over the safety that the harpoon provides. Harpoons can and should be targeted towards enemies that directly threaten your turrets. Why would you want to shield yourself from threats when you can just kill them with a missile launcher that you don't even have to aim? The combination of good turret placement and good target priority with your harpoons is more than enough to keep them alive. Your harpoon launcher is essentially your airborne threat eliminator. If you take the bubble, you have to rely almost strictly on your turrets to take out the airborne threats, and that's not something you want to do. I mean, you can take out airborne threats with your primary, it's just not the most reliable thing in the world. You have to be pretty close to them to do so. The bubble promotes a passive style of play, which is significantly less safe when enemies are as aggressive as they are on Eclipse 7 and up. Standing inside the bubble while enemies move and attack more frequently is a death sentence. In summary, the bubble keeps you a lot less safe than the harpoons, since the harpoons allow you to face your problems head on, whereas the bubble just allows you to cower in fear from them. The harpoons are a better ability to have in the majority of situations, in my opinion. Also, it is the alpha male Chad Risk of Rain 1 OG Engineer ability.
I don't wanna be a bubble boy!
Okay, settle down. I can fix it.
One last thing I think that I should probably mention, if you move an enemy out of your harpoon radius and back into it, you can apply another stack of it a lot faster than if you were to just sit there and wait for it to happen. So you can just kind of press shift and then flick your mouse back and forth. Just get all the stacks on it really quick. If you play with controller though, I'm very sorry. Have fun with that. Now if you take what I said about passive play in the previous segment, you can likely determine that I much prefer the spider mines to the pressure mines. you don't really have time to be setting up pressure mines that you can lead enemies into. The spider mines have a much larger effective range, much faster than the pressure mines. The spider mines are just a much more aggressive pick, which is exactly what you need on Eclipse 8. I was going to dedicate an entire section to this, but I didn't really write enough. I don't really have an argument for the pressure mines. They're kind of doo-doo shit. It's a no-brainer for this one in my opinion.
Doo-doo feces.
Okay, so let me get this out of the way. If you get to commencement and you don't have a wax quail or any movement speed items, just end the run. The window for error for making your way back to the beginning of the stage during the boon detonation is extremely slim thanks to Engineer's lack of mobility. You will most certainly not make it. Just one wax quail or energy drink is enough for you to make it back with a decent amount of time left on the timer, around 40 seconds. Trust me, I have tried making it back without a wax quail or any movement speed, and it did not work out very well. I don't want this video to age too horribly, so when it comes to damage, whatever the standard on-hit meta is, the time is really what you should just take. As I write this video, bleed is really good, so if you're watching this when it comes out, you'll bleed. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the bustling fungus. I would not recommend it on Eclipse 5 and up, unfortunately. With the Eclipse modifiers, you have to build so many more to make the effect actually useful, and I don't think it's worth the investment. The permanent damage on Eclipse 8 is really what tips fungus over the edge of not being worth it to me, in my opinion. The healing investment becomes less worth it the less maximum HP your turrets have. I would, however, recommend taking Transcendence, because I think the shield playstyle is much better than the healing playstyle, at least when it comes to Eclipse difficulty. And also Transcendence gives you immunity to fall damage, which you will need. Transcendence bypasses the first Eclipse modifier of spawning at half HP, and it'll make your turret spawn with full shield. In fact, I like Transcendence so much that even with a couple of healing items, I'll still take it when I see it. Gorag's Opus is an item that synergizes pretty well with Engineer, as it raises the attack and movement speed of both yourself and your turrets. It's better to use with the walking turrets because you get the movement speed buff on them, but I think it's still a somewhat decent item overall. I would still rather take something better in the item equipment slot, but it's not bad. It's something to keep in mind. It's almost like a mini Spinel tonic that works for both you and your turrets. The Red Whip is actually pretty damn good when using the walking turrets, in my opinion. It really helps keep them alongside you, whereas they usually fall quite a bit behind if you're using a wax quail or making use of the map's verticality, climbing up walls and things. Also, at the time of writing this, I don't think using your thermal harpoons actually removes the movement speed from Red Whip. I guess it doesn't consider you in combat when using them, which is strange because it changes your primary entirely. Another really good item synergy with the walking turrets is Death Mark, because they apply a slow to the enemy that counts as a debuff, and it is separate from Chronobobble slow. So if you have a Chronobobble, their lasers will apply 2 debuffs automatically. The only items that I would really consider to be anti-synergies for the Engineer are the Backup Mag and Infusion. The Backup Magazine, because you can only have 4 mines out at one time, and throwing out a 5th one will just blow up the first one you placed. If you're just spamming them like grenades and just throwing them out, there's a chance that you might accidentally blow one up before it gets to its target if you have a backup mag and aren't paying attention. And the infusion, because the turrets can steal your infusion stacks, and they will steal your infusion stacks. It's going to take a lot longer to stack it up than compared to any other survivor. In the very early stages of the game, I would prioritize mobility over damage. Engineer has the damage to easily avoid picking up damage items in the early game if there are mobility items available for you to get. Hot Brew Feathers are, without a doubt, in my opinion, the most important item to get on Engineer for a variety of different reasons. One being that you can put your turrets in some wacky places, and the second being to avoid taking fall damage. Visions of Heresy is a great item on Engineer in my opinion, but I think that's a bit of a personal preference. I really like replacing his primary with the Visions of Heresy primary. and it really doesn't make your DPS fall off, so I think it's definitely a worthwhile choice. Due to how your shift interacts with your primary, if you take Visions of Heresy, if you use your shift while your primary is on cooldown, it will completely restart the cooldown of it, because your primary technically changes while your shift is active, assuming you're using the harpoon launcher, because you should be. So be sure to wait for your primary to be all the way off cooldown before using your shift when using Visions of Heresy. I'm pretty sure this is a bug, but it could be an intended mechanic, I'm not sure. Also, one last synergy I'll mention, you probably know this already, but Dio's best friend is better on Engineer than any other character because it revives your turrets once. That is very good. Usually they just die again right after, but I mean, hey, that's more turret uptime, and you can't really complain with more turret uptime. Getting a Dio's best friend on Engineer basically just means that you can be a lot lazier with your turret placement and have your turrets still come out okay. I want to wrap this whole thing up by talking a little bit about how to handle the Mithrix fight while using the stationary turrets. It's not super complicated of a game plan. As soon as the fight starts, you're going to want to find one of those large slope structures, and you're going to go to the very top of them where it's flat, and you're going to want to choose one of the sides, either left or right, and put 2 turrets on the very edge, and then try and get Mithrix to focus you and keep him right in the line of sight of the turrets. Just try and keep him around there and let your turrets DPS him while he tries to hit you. Due to the placement of the turrets, Mithrix will often launch himself in the air when trying to attack them. This will make him take a lot of fall damage after he gets to the ground, but it'll also put him in a good spot for your turrets to be able to get a lot of free damage off on him. Also, be sure to save 2 turrets for when he enters his final phase so you can place them right at the beginning and get them in a good spot, and be sure to spread them out so he doesn't take them both out at the exact same time, which you should be spreading them out anyways, but yeah. If you have a ukulele when you enter the final stage for the Mithrix fight, be sure to keep away from your own turrets during the final phase, or else he will kill you with the ukulele. And honestly, I think that's just about everything I had to say about Engineer. This video was kind of a mess, so any constructive criticism would be greatly appreciated. I decided to make this video because I haven't really seen any dedicated Engineer mains on YouTube. I mean, maybe I'm just not looking hard enough, but there aren't any from what I can tell. I just wanted to make something for all the aspiring Engineer players to watch. I'm not really sure what my next video is gonna be. I'm kind of just going with the flow at this point. Recently, I've been kind of wanting to make a video about my crippling addiction to action roguelikes that was born back when Spelunky came out on the Xbox Live Arcade, and how in the past couple of years we've gotten some absolute gems in the roguelike subgenre of games, but we've also gotten heaps of garbage. Whether or not that actually happens, only time will tell.